Hey, what's up, everybody? How we doing this morning? Having a little bit of issue with my audio here, um, but I think we'll be able to move forward with the show. So, go ahead and say something in the comments if you want to see a chart. It is now 6:30, actually 8:30 a.m., 8:33 a.m. EST, and we do have some economic data coming out today. So before we go talk about who we are and what we do, we're actually just going to jump right into the content, right into the economic data and charts. All right, so let me get the chart prepared. Give me one moment here. Share the screen and all of that sort of thing. Go ahead and do a shout out, say hello over in the comments if you wish. And we'll grab this screen right here. All right. Okay, so we're looking at the economic data for today. I'm going to go ahead and manipulate the screen here, make it easier to see things here. Okay. And that's the 8th. Today is the 6th. God, dude, time just flies, man. Days fly off the calendar. It's crazy. Fed Chair Powell testifies at 10 a.m. EST today. So, let's see here. He's due to testify about the semi-annual monetary policy report before the House Financial Services Committee in DC. Okay, so this is about what, twice a year it appears, semi-annual. So this is a relatively big deal. And what happens in these testimonies is people will dissect what Powell is saying, right? So for those who might be super new to this, Chairman Powell, he chairs the Fed. The Federal Reserve is basically the body. It's a private bank. It's actually a cartel of private banks, and it decides the interest rate. And the Federal Reserve has a couple of mandates: stable prices, and I believe the other one is employment. Right. So whatever the case may be, they want to keep inflation down. Right. That's at least their stated goal, and they want to keep the official inflation down. And the way they did that in this last year or two, whether, despite the level of success they may have seen, that was by keeping interest rates a little bit higher, right? They hiked up the interest rates. That suppressed the economy to a certain degree, although we did see the stock market just continue to go up quite a bit to, I believe, all-time highs. So whatever he didn't keep the stock market from doing that. Although some would argue that that was a function of us being in an election year and pre-election year, and they wanted to just cram money into markets to make the current administration look good, which is pretty typical. So that being the case, there's a lot there. There's a lot of supposition there. There's a lot of conjecture there, right? But that conjecture is pretty pretty much like a consensus across the board. And while science is not based on consensus, what we do at Algo Factory is we take a look at what's going on in the economy so that we could have an idea of which way the wind is blowing, right? Which way prices are going. The charts will tell us most of everything we need to know in that realm. But this kind of data right here gives us an idea of what could happen. And in particular, this Fed Chair Powell testifying, what this does for us is it gives me an idea of when I want to stay out of the market, right? When I do not want to trade. These kind of these events, if you will, these red folders that you see on the screen, like these ones that say CAD next to them, that's for the Canadian dollar. USD at 6:15, like 15 minutes ago, there was some data that came out for non-farm employment change. That was, that was a red envelope event, relatively heavy. It came out less than expected, meaning that there were less jobs than expected, which is going to be bad for the dollar, which is good for everything else. So we could even look at the chart at 6:15 a.m. and see if, in fact, whatever goes against the dollar went up. We can actually experiment to see whether or not that worked. And then we're going to jump into Bitcoin and Ethereum. But let's go ahead and take a quick look to see if that data at 6:15 actually made a difference right here. And by the way, if you're watching on YouTube and I believe Rumble, you should be able to make comments and ask for charts. If there's a chart that you want to see, a crypto chart, or if you want to see gold, which gold is really making some all-time highs, I believe. A lot of stuff moving. A lot going on in the charts, a lot going on right now. So if we look at this chart right at 6:15, not a lot went on. I mean, there was movement here. This orange candle that you see right here. Now I've zoomed in. So of course this is going to make things look a lot bigger than they are because we are on the 5-minute chart, right? We're looking very closely and each one of these candles is 5 minutes worth of price action. And this spike up in the euro is to do with the non-farm employment, right? So what is this all like? How do you know how this works? Well, when the non-farm employment change comes out negative, that means there were less jobs than expected, right? And when the expectation is not met, that means that it's weak for the dollar. It means the economy is not as strong as what people thought. And the reason that's weak for the dollar is because what the Fed is going to do with interest rates has to do with how well the economy is performing. The idea with hiking the rates was to suppress the economy so inflation would go down, right? To make money more expensive. When money's more expensive, pretty much everything slows down. And that's just because everything is based on debt at this point. That's just the entire way our system works. So, right at this point, with the weakness of the economy, the thought is that, oh, well, if the economy is weak, then hiking the rates did its job. And the next thing we're probably going to see is a rate cut. And when you see a rate cut, that means the dollar is going to become less expensive. It's going to be cheaper, which means that more things are going to be invested into the economy, if you will. So when you have the euro versus the dollar like this, let's see if I can get my text box to work here. There it goes. When you have the euro versus the dollar, EUR, well, what happens is in this case, the dollar gets weaker because the idea here is that they're going to be able to cut the rates, right? They need to cut the rates because they've been hiking the rates and it's time to turn that around. And so with the dollar getting weaker in comparison, the euro gets stronger. That's how that works. Even though the euro hasn't been really changed, nothing happened fundamentally necessarily to the euro, at least not due to that announcement. So with the dollar going down, the euro goes up in comparison, right? So it's just really what it is the dollar going down. And that's why you see these candles moving upwards because the non-farm employment numbers, like I said, they came out lower than expected. Means, oh, we're going to have to cut the rates to stimulate the economy in the future. The wisdom is that, oh, well, rate cuts might happen sooner, and that's why the euro goes up. And a lot of people try to trade this, but that's a little bit dangerous. And this goes back to what I said, why I use this information to stay out of the news. Okay. So the reason I do that is because um, the dangerous thing about trading news is look at this one wick that looks like a sword going down. It's called a doji. I think it's like a dragonfly doji. They got all the names for these Japanese candlesticks. And so this one right here, even if I had gone long because, oh, well, like that means like all the reasons I just explained why the euro is going to go up against the dollar. Well, this might have taken me out of that trade, right? Because the announcement happened right here at this candle, this orange candle. It's like, oh, well, price is going to go up. The euro is going to go up. So I'm going to go long. Well, I might have gone long here, right? And then I might have gone, let's just say I went long here and I had a stop loss down here, like, oh, well, if price goes against me, I will get out of my trade. Well, that candle right there shoved price down really hard. And this is what's called a lot of things. You could call it a stop run, liquidity grab. And the market makers will take price and they will push it down hard to stop people out to grab liquidity. So the people who the people who trade news oftentimes get stopped out because people understand, oh, well, they see the non-farm employment number, they're going to go long, they're going to have stop losses down here, and it's profitable for the large players to stop out the smaller traders. So this is why I do not trade the news. Now, there are ways to do it. That's not how I roll. I'm a technical trader. I don't like to gamble on the news, right? So, but that's the euro as in a nutshell, really right now. I'll go ahead and do just a little bit of charting on this, but we really want to get into what happened with Bitcoin and Ethereum. So let me see. I say the euro is just bullish right now. That's just all there is to it. I mean, there's not. Let me chart what I think will happen in the next few days. For the moment, it does seem that the euro will continue up, and where I think it will go is going to be to about $1.9687. So I might take actually a trade on this because finally things have, but I don't want to take a trade till Powell testifies. But when Powell testifies, I may take a trade that looks something like this, as long as Powell's testimony doesn't really shake things up too bad. So I would enter, right about this price, maybe current price or whatever price is at that time. If there's enough, if the trade setup at that time is good, and that's not for another hour and 15 minutes. So I'm going to hold off, wait until Powell speaks, see what the market does, and then see if I can formulate a trade at that time. All right. So let's roll over to Ethereum. Actually, we'll look at Bitcoin first because that's the big dog. Of course, I did a video yesterday. You go to whatever, if you're on Rumble, YouTube, whatever it is, you'll see that I have a video based on all-time high. And technically on some exchanges, we made all-time high yesterday, but I'm not like out there cheerleading because basically it got immediately rejected to the downside. And the downside rejection was significant. I bet you it was about, 10, 15%. Let's see. Yeah, 15%. Downside rejection 15%. So that was pretty significant. Now I did talk about a pullback before the halving of 20 to 30%. That's typical. But again, on the show that I did last Friday, I was very careful to let everybody know that the data that we have, like looking at past halvings, seeing that we have a pullback right before the halving of 20 to 30%. Okay, so you're using old data points. That's good. It's a form of back testing, but we only have 3 halvings we can look at. We do not have a very strong data set. We don't have a good sample size. We can't really form a very strong thesis as to what price will do before the halving based on 3 data points. You need 103 data points. We only have 3 halvings to look at, and one of those halvings was actually infected by the COVID crash. It was that data was skewed. So we really only have 2 reliable data points on which to form such a thesis. Now, again, we did see a rejection at the all-time high, which also can be typical of a lot of different asset classes, right? You get an all-time high, price tries to go above, a lot of people sell into it. I talked to someone last night, one of their friends lost $400,000 on a single trade, getting liquidated on this. People who are out there gambling on these crazy moves of Bitcoin, I personally do not like to do things like that. My trades are a lot more measured, and I tend not to trade in like crazy times. I wait for the market to calm down. I wait for a technical market to unfold. And then when that technical market unfolds, that is when I go ahead and develop a trade thesis and go for it. But for now, it seems as if price grabbed whatever liquidity there was to grab. I did have a couple of spots, and again, price could still head down. Anything can happen. There was a little bit of liquidity right here, and price didn't even make it all the way down there. The thing about super bullish markets is people look for entries based on price action, and they don't get their entries, right? Because the market front runs them. So when things are hyper bullish, that usually means that, oh, well, I'm going to wait till price goes back down and grabs this, and then they just end up waiting forever and never getting their entry. It is very, very common. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, I've been trading full time since 2017, and I've had my ups and downs for sure. Like any trader is going to take time to actually be profitable and successful. And what I have found is that staying stoic and lacking, how do I say this? Lacking emotion that can be very interrupting to trades. That's what we do. We at Algo Factory, we helped people build their own trading method, and then because they have that method, they can avoid the problem that emotions bring. So at this point, right now, it looks like Bitcoin's going to do well. I could tell you for sure it's going to do one of 3 things because there are only 3 things it can really do, right? It can go up, down, or sideways. So we want to map out what those things look like. Now, for the moment, it does appear that Bitcoin may be building a range for at least the short term. If it were to go sideways, it probably would go back and forth between, say, maybe 62,700 and maybe 69,000, right? All-time high, bouncing back and forth. That's possible, but as wild as the market is right now, something tells me that price might just continue upwards. Price might just push up, not even wait. We could see a consolidation like we saw right before this pop up, right before the all-time high test, and then a move up. That's quite possible. Each one of the candles you see on this chart is almost a day's worth of price action. So, it's 18 hours really. So again, yesterday was basically an all-time high test. Bitcoin, this is the highest Bitcoin's price has ever been, and rejected almost to the penny. Go ahead and take a look at the video I did yesterday and really the last several days, but Friday in particular talks about some possibilities, right? And there may simply not be a significant pullback in this market. That's just very possible. Price could continue up. And what would that look like? Let's see. I'm going to do something called the Fibonacci extension. And we're going to do it based on a prior impulse. So an impulse is when price moves in a given direction in a strong way. So I'm going to map this impulse out using this trend line so you all can see what I'm talking about. That's the impulse I'm going to look at. And a lot of this is already played out, right? So we might have to back out to a higher time frame as well. But the 1.618, okay, so look, this is a Fibonacci tool. If you want to learn how to do this, come to algofactory.tech, zap that QR code top right-hand side of the screen, and we can teach you how to do what I'm doing right now. It's very simple. But the target for that's around 72,000, about 72,300. That's where that target is. Now, there are two targets based on this. One of them has already been met. You have this Fibonacci extension, and then you have this Fibonacci extension, right? This Fibonacci extension was grabbed yesterday when it tested the all-time high, and then you have this next one at 72,000-ish, right above 72,000. And of course, over in the private live lab, which starts in about 10 minutes, we flip over to the private lab at the end of this free to the public live lab. We understand a little bit more about what happens with Bitcoin, why it moves like it moves. And we understand this from an institutional standpoint because via the Gorilla, who is my business partner in Algo Factory, he actually helps people get very large amounts of Bitcoin. He helps broker those deals. So because of that, both Bitcoin and gold, by the way, which is flying off the charts, literally, because of those deals that he makes, he talks to people at a high level and he understands the way that Bitcoin behaves and what is expected by some very, very wealthy people. So we actually can combine his knowledge with my charting and form a thesis. But I can tell you right now that this low 72,000, if I were to simply say, hey, where's Bitcoin going to touch next in the next few days? And somebody had like a gun to my head and just said, you got to make a choice. I would say the probability is such that we break all-time high, maybe even today, and go up there. And I'm going to refine that just by looking at some of the metrics here. Now, what you're seeing on this crazy looking screen is a lot of data that I use. And my algo is not even this complex, right? This is just me looking at a bunch of different indicators. Some of them I use, some of them I don't, but I can tell you the overall price is bullish. And again, I think the most likely path as of now is going to be like this, something like that. And it might be way, way quicker than what I just drew. It could simply just go up from here. It might pop up sooner, but I can tell you price is hyper bullish right now, hyper bullish. And I do expect all-time highs, like I said, to be broken very quickly. So now we do have a few minutes yet left. We haven't had any requests from the audience. So I am going to take a look at Ethereum and show everybody what I did and why I was able to make money when a lot of people lost money. Okay. So first of all, 2-3 days ago, I entered a trade, right? And as I entered that trade, I entered it right in front of everybody in the live lab, in the private live lab. So everybody in our private group got to see me get into this trade, and it looked like this. Okay. In fact, I'm going to go to a lower time frame so we can get a better look at this. And I'm going to explain to you how I was able to not only stop myself from losing money, but actually make money and good money on this trade. So you'll notice I have some lines marked out here, and those lines have to do with what happened in that trade, okay? I entered here. Now price went up, and at one point I was above 230% profit. It was beautiful. However, Bitcoin did that crazy business that it did, right? And that this big wick down in Ethereum was actually caused really by Bitcoin having that rejection at the all-time high. So if I break this down to a lower time frame, we can see this from a granular standpoint and look at the way price behaved and how I reacted to that. So Ethereum came down pretty hard. Now my stop loss was at entry. So at this point in the trade, if price hit where I entered, I would have been out of the trade at no loss. Okay, so I had done that because I have a formula for when I raise stop to entry, and I followed that formula, and there it is, right? So as it came back up, and it just so happened I was looking at the charts when this happened. As price came back up, I went ahead and exited right at this line that you see at. That's why I have that line there, that blue line. I exited there, and it was above a 1-to-1 profit. So, I was able to get out. And of course, the reason I got out was because the whole landscape had changed, right? The whole landscape had changed. So because of that, my whole formula for being in this trade, the reason why I'm in that trade was no longer there. I had to go ahead and just get out, and I got out at profit. And of course, price would have taken all of my profit away had I not done that. So, Dr. Mulder, we have been in alt season for like months. So we have been in alt season since like, I don't mean to be a smartass, but if you look at the altcoins, they have doubled, tripled, quadrupled. Some of them have gone up times 5. So we have been in alt season for quite some time. But if maybe you're looking for more like, when is alt season going to ramp up? Like, when are we going to see alt season, start getting crazier than it is right now? Because it's pretty crazy at the moment. I would say when Bitcoin stabilizes, right? Because on the way up, Bitcoin will stabilize, and it could happen now. So it could look something like, let me show you. I can hear you, Gorilla. You wanna
Oh,
get that Gorilla? Good morning, sir.
good morning. I was making friends with a cup of coffee. Yes.
Nice. Yeah,
Good morning
man.
to all of you. How are you guys doing?
Well, I'm doing great. We got some old friends here. We got Dr. Mulder on. We got Lisa Gray. We actually have a decent crowd watching it this morning.
That's
So
awesome, man.
it looks like the crowd's been increasing. I have been posting a lot of what we have going on X, and I've been talking to a lot of people in spaces and stuff. So I think our crowd is just growing.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. So, but to answer Dr. What's that?
Is it time for a send off, or is what's going on?
It's just about, I want to answer Mulder's question though.
All season.
Yeah, Mulder's our buddy. Mulder goes back a long way with us.
I remember he used to work with Agent Scully over at the FBI.
Yes. Well, Mulder's who got us into that meeting over in Utah. If you remember, me and Frank went to Utah.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
That was Mulder that got us in, and we had to fight through some significant resistance to get through that. So we have Mulder to thank for that. Look, if Bitcoin were to stabilize, like, for example, if you look at Bitcoin right here, you see how this range happened right around the ETF for like 2 months. Bitcoin hung out right here. And when Bitcoin goes up, like in a very strong manner, people tend to sell their altcoins to get into Bitcoin and take advantage of that move. But when Bitcoin stabilizes, they start to play with the altcoins. So I would look at Bitcoin stabilizing, and it could be happening now. On the daily, you do see the ADX starting to slough off. If ADX were to go below 20 on the daily, I think that's a decent clue as to alts starting to have a good time. And if the ADX, the average directional index, were to go below 20 on the weekly, then I think we would see some crazy alt games. But I can tell you, like I said, we have been in a higher time frame alt party since 6 months ago at least. Alts have been going off. So, but yeah, Gorilla, sir, go ahead, give us the send off. And Mulder, I think you're still with us in the private group. So if you have any more questions, go ahead and ask us in that private group. And in the meantime, Gorilla, please get us out of here.
Sure, guys. Listen, follow us over to the live lab. That's where all the action is. That's where all the juicy information is. That's all where we teach you how to build the algorithms that trade on your behalf 24 hours a day, as well as get you real inside information on what the hell's going on in the market, where we are, and where we're heading. It's the only place in the world that does that. So join us or die.
Join us or die.
I love it.